You know, sometimes keeping up with education, it feels like you need a secret decoder ring, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, especially I think if you're involved in supporting English learners, you probably know exactly what I mean.
Hmm.
So today we wanted to really zero in on Title III compliance,
Right.
but not just to tell you what it is. We want to give you a clear, kind of actionable understanding of why it matters and, how it actually works on the ground.
Yeah, the practical side of things.
Hmm.
We're not just aiming to, define it.
No.
The real goal is to unpack its purpose,
Yeah.
right? See how that translates into meaningful support for ELs practically.
Going beyond just the basics.
Exactly. So you can really get the why and the how, feel more confident about it.
Okay, so let's get right to it then. What fundamentally is Title III?
Fundamentally, okay, Title III is a really important part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the ESA,
Mm-hmm.
which you might know is updated, reauthorized
Mm-hmm.
under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA.
Right, ESA, we hear that a lot.
Yeah. And the main objective, it's pretty direct, making sure English learners, or ELs, develop strong English skills
Okay.
and that they meet the same high academic standards as all their peers.
So it's about language and academics, both.
Both.
Equally important.
Okay, that sounds like a fundamental goal, like you said. How
Yeah.
does Title III try to make that actually happen?
Well, it sets up the framework, and maybe most critically, it provides the federal funding.
The money.
Right, for specific programs, and these programs are designed to give that targeted language instruction,
Uh-huh.
and also the other support services ELs might need to hit those ambitious goals, both language and academic.
So it's a federal structure with funding attached.
Yeah.
Got it. How does that actually play out at the state level? Like, let's take Oklahoma as an example.
Yeah, that's a really important question because states definitely have their own layer.
Right.
So while Title III gives the federal guidelines, states can add specific requirements. In Oklahoma, the State Department of Education actually mandates something specific. Okay, what's that?
Every single student who's identified as an English learner has to have an English language academic plan. They call it an ELAP.
An ELAP. Okay, that sounds like a really key document. What's in it? What kind of information are we talking about?
It really is key. It functions almost like an individualized roadmap for supporting that student.
Okay.
So it'll have their basic info, demographics, sure, but also their history of English language testing,
Mm-hmm.
the specific academic goals set for them, the instructional strategies and interventions the teacher plans to use.
Wow, specific.
Yeah, and any accommodations they might need, for classwork, for tests, all laid out for the academic year.
So it's a very personalized plan then, not just a generic checklist.
Exactly,
Yeah.
personalized. And the really crucial thing here for Oklahoma schools is they must maintain and update an ELAP for every single identified EL student.
Not just create it once and forget it.
No, no, it has to be current. It ensures that the support is tailored and, just as importantly, consistently applied.
Okay. Now, thinking practically, for a teacher, say, in Putnam City schools, where would they actually go to find these ELAPs?
Good question. In Putnam City specifically, teachers can find all the ELAPs they need right inside the EduSkills platform.
That use skills. Okay.
Yeah, and that platform is pretty easy to access through ClassLink, which, most educators in the district use regularly anyway.
Right. Familiar territory.
Exactly. So once they get into a student's ELAP in EduSkills, they can quickly see really vital info, like the student's current English language proficiency level
Okay.
and the specific classroom accommodations recommended to help them learn best.
That sounds incredibly useful, putting it right where teachers need it.
It is very practical.
And I think you mentioned there's more within that EduSkills platform too. Something about activities.
Yes, that's the Sheltered Instruction Activities portal. It's also part of EduSkills.
Sheltered instruction. Okay, tell me more about that.
So sheltered instruction, at its core, it's about teaching grade-level content,
Mm-hmm.
history, science, math, but in a way that's understandable for students who are still learning English while they're learning the language.
Making the content accessible.
Precisely. And this portal, it's packed with activities and supports, all backed by research.
Ah, research-based. Good.
Yes. And here's the really neat part. While these activities are designed for ELs,
Yeah.
the strategies used in sheltered instruction, things like using visuals, clear language, modeling, They often make the content more accessible and clearer for all the students in the classroom.
Oh, that's a fantastic point, like universal design for learning.
Like it taps into those principles, helps reduce the cognitive load,
Mhm.
makes things clearer for everyone, so it benefits the whole class.
That's a great insight. Okay, so we've covered the what of Title III, the where, like the ELAP in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Let's shift to the who. What are the essential responsibilities for teachers under Title III?
Right, the teachers.
Yeah.
They're on the front lines working directly with these students.
Mhm.
So they have several really key responsibilities. First, and probably foremost, is implementing effective instructional strategies,
Right.
using teaching methods that research shows actually work in helping ELs build their English skills while they're learning the grade level stuff,
Right.
the math, the science, etc.
So integrating language and content learning, not separate things.
Exactly. It's not teaching English in a vacuum. It has to be integrated.
Makes total sense. What else falls under their responsibilities?
Second, teachers play a huge role in carefully monitoring student progress.
Monitoring. Okay.
Yeah, regularly assessing both how their language is developing and how they're doing academically.
Keeping track.
Yes, and this ongoing assessment is absolutely crucial. It guides their instruction, helps them know if adjustments are needed or if, extra support or interventions have to be put in place quickly.
So that assessment feeds right back into their teaching, a constant loop.
It should, yes. That's the goal. Then third, there's the connection with families.
Ah, yes. Family engagement.
Absolutely fundamental. This means actively communicating with EL families, ideally in a language they understand.
Which can be a challenge.
It can be a huge challenge, definitely. But it's about involving them in their child's education, keeping them in the loop about progress, school events, everything.
Building that
Building that bridge, exactly. And that leads to the final key piece, which is professional development.
for the teachers themselves.
Yes, a commitment to ongoing learning. Teachers need to actively look for and participate in training opportunities that boost their skills and knowledge specifically for teaching English learners effectively,
Yeah.
making sure they have the latest tools and best practices.
Always learning, always improving. Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into those effective instructional strategies you mentioned. What might those actually look like in a classroom? Can you give some concrete examples beyond just the term sheltered instruction?
Yeah, absolutely. So under that sheltered instruction umbrella, think about, say, a science lesson. The teacher might use graphic organizers like flowcharts or Venn diagrams to visually map out concepts,
Visual aids. Right.
or provide sentence frames or sentence starters to help students talk or write about the topic using academic language, like the main cause of is ang.
Scaffolding the language.
Exactly. Modeling steps clearly, maybe for an experiment, using simple language, pointing, demonstrating. All that makes complex content accessible while English is still developing.
Okay, that helps paint a picture. What else?
Another huge one is differentiated instruction.
Tailoring it.
Yes, recognizing that not all ELs in the same class are at the same proficiency level. So you tailor the tasks.
That's so.
Well, maybe in a reading activity, some students work on identifying the main idea in a slightly simpler version of the text, while others, maybe more advanced ELs, are analyzing complex vocabulary or author's purpose in the original grade-level text. Same core content, different access points.
Makes sense meeting them where they are.
Right. And then collaborative learning, super important.
Group work.
Structured group work, yeah. Think pair share, small group discussions where maybe each student has a role, peer tutoring, anything that gets ELs talking, using language with their classmates in a meaningful way about the content.
Using the language to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one more sometimes, strategically using the student's native language can be a really powerful support.
Oh, interesting. How does that fit in?
Well, especially when introducing maybe a really complex new idea, letting students briefly discuss it in their first language with a peer who shares that language
Ah, I see.
can help them really grasp the concept before they try to tackle it in English. It's a bridge to understanding.
Those are great, really concrete examples, helps visualize it. Okay, we talked about teachers monitoring progress. How is that progress formally assessed, beyond just the teacher's observations?
Right, the formal side is kind of a multi-layered process for ELs. First, you have the specific language proficiency assessments.
Designed just for language skills.
Yes, measuring their growth in English. In Oklahoma, the main statewide tool for this is the WIDA Access Test.
Wide access, okay.
Yeah, it's a standardized test. Looked at all 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English.
The 4 domains.
Exactly. And it's given annually to track how they're progressing in actually acquiring English proficiency over time.
So that gives that formal measure of language growth. What about their academic progress, compared to their grade level peers?
Also critical. So alongside tracking the language, you have to monitor their academic achievement
Ow.
by looking at how they perform on regular classroom assignments, unit tests, projects,
Mm-hmm.
and also on the statewide academic tests that all students take, comparing their performance against the same grade level standards expected for native English speakers.
Apples to apples on the academics.
Right. And that comparison helps identify if they need extra academic support to keep up with the curriculum, separate from just the language support.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have the day-to-day stuff, formative assessments.
Ah, the quick checks.
Exactly. Those ongoing checks for understanding exit tickets, quick writes, maybe just strategic observation during class activities.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Could be. Anything that gives the teacher that real-time feedback. Who's getting it? Who needs a quick reteach or a different approach right now? It allows for adjusting instruction on the fly.
Formative assessment, like taking the pulse of learning constantly. Okay, let's pivot a bit to engaging EL families. You stressed clear communication earlier. What are some other really effective ways schools can build those partnerships beyond just translation?
Yeah, translation is essential, but it's often not enough on its own. Real engagement means actively creating a welcoming environment where EL families feel valued and involved.
Making them feel part of the school community.
Exactly. This could mean hosting school events that are intentionally inclusive, maybe celebrating diverse cultures represented in the school,
Uh-huh.
providing interpreters not just for parent-teacher conferences, but maybe for PTO meetings or information nights too.
Being proactive about access.
Yes. And really making an effort to understand and respect the cultural backgrounds and norms of the families. Building trust is huge.
So it's much deeper than just overcoming a language barrier. It's about building genuine connection and trust.
Absolutely. Schools should actively invite families to participate. Maybe volunteering, attending student performances, or even having a voice in some school decisions where it's appropriate.
Creating that welcoming atmosphere.
That's key. And one more thing, sharing resources.
Resources for families.
Yeah. Offering materials or workshops, maybe in their home language, about how they can support their child's learning at home. Tips for reading together, helping with homework, understanding the school system. That really strengthens the homeschool connection.
That sounds like a really intentional wraparound approach to building those bridges.
Right.
Very important. So if someone listening wants to dig deeper into Title III or they need specific resources, where should they look?
Okay, yeah, there are several really excellent, reliable places to go. For Oklahoma-specific stuff, the Oklahoma State Department of Education website is the go-to. You'll find state guidelines, resources, even the ELA form itself there.
Okay, State Department of Ed.
Got it. Then on a national level, there's the National Clearinghouse for English Language Acquisition. NCLA for short.
NCLS.
It's fantastic resources like a library of research, practical tools, best practices, all for educators working with ELs. Really valuable.
Sounds great. Anything else?
And of course, the U.S. Department of Education. Their website has guidance documents, policy information on Title III implementation, and related federal education news.
So state, national clearinghouse, and federal levels. Plenty to explore.
Definitely. A wealth of information is out there if you know where to look.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this all together, we've journeyed through Title III from its core principles under EA to seeing how it plays out specifically here in Oklahoma, especially with that vital ELAP document.
Right.
We've also touched on the crucial roles teachers play, some really practical strategies for instruction and assignment,
Yeah, the hands-on stuff.
and underline just how critical genuine family engagement is.
That's a good summary.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately understanding all this and more importantly, implementing it effectively. It's not just about checking boxes for compliance, right?
Yeah, it feels much bigger than that.
It is. It's really about our commitment, our professional obligation to make sure every single student, no matter their English language background, truly has an equitable shot, a fair chance to learn, to grow, to reach their full potential.
It really is an ongoing journey, isn't it? Learning, adapting, working together. And it seems absolutely essential if we want to build learning environments that are truly inclusive and effective for all our students.
Well said. Absolutely essential.
So we really encourage you, if this is relevant to your work or your interests, explore those resources we mentioned, Oklahoma State Department of Ed and CELA, U.S. Department of Education. Continue digging into this. For you, reflecting on all this, what's maybe the single most significant thing to keep in mind about Title III and its real-world impact?